That wasn't an All-Ireland winning performance.
Probably should have won the game based on their second half performance.
Is it a step too far to say it was the performance so far of the World Cup? Maybe not.
OTB AM's Performance Rankings with Gillette.
I'm scratching my head. Our performances was just lacked that intensity.
Boom. We're starting the red, lads, and a story that started to break overnight. I think we're starting with the women's rugby, and unfortunately for the women's rugby team and the Six Nations campaign, which is now finished, they've appeared quite consistently in the red for us. And the breaking news overnight, and it's a story that's been covered in the Irish Independent this morning from Brendan Fanning and Rory O'Connor, is that the Irish women's head coach Greg McWilliams is to step down from the job with immediate effect. We understand it's going to happen very soon indeed. So they lost to Scotland, of course, the weekend in their final game. It was the wooden spoon decider, and the wooden spoon it is for Ireland and for Greg McWilliams. A worst ever concession of points as well in this campaign, a minus 167. It also means Ireland are going to be in tier 3 of the new international women's 15 competition, which starts in the autumn. So I think it's fair to say, lads, it's been a fairly #grim campaign.
Yeah, first wooden spoon since 2004 as well. And in the futures with John McKee, Niamh Briggs and Dennis Fogarty are still all up for grabs too, McWilliams' coaching staff. But it's been an unmitigated disaster really from start to finish. Like, there wasn't high hopes going into this tournament. We previewed it. We weren't feeling too confident. But, to be nilled by England, I know England are a fantastic side, way ahead, but it was just so demoralising. And then to be unchanged against Scotland and actually doing well against them. Like, we were 3-0 up. It was the only time we had led all tournament long. It looks like we were going into the break 3-0 ahead, like into the red in the first half injury time. Scotland go over. And then Nicola Friday scores a well worth try in the second half. We're level at 10-all after 55 minutes. This is very promising. 25 minutes ago we could actually win this, but then Scotland just accelerated beyond us very, very quickly, retook the lead. And there was kind of individual brilliance too at stages by Scotland, which we just don't have. And you look, it's very clearly unfair and unrealistic to compare the men's and women's game in the moment in the country, but we are literally on the complete opposite end of the scale. And it was 2013 we won the Grand Slam. How can we get back there? Maybe this is the first step to it with the news that's breaking this morning.
So when you say expectations weren't that high, I remember we previewed the Women's Six Nations the day or two before it began, and the expectation from Greg McWilliams and the coaching team was high. They were
naturally, yeah,
we want to finish third. In fact, we feel like we can definitely finish third behind England and France, of course, who are on another level, not least with funding. But so clearly they felt even before the tournament started that they were further along on the road than they were. Now we know that a lot of the players from the sevens weren't there, and there was a lot of relative inexperience and lack of caps in that Irish squad compared to some of the other teams, but still the coaching team and the team itself felt like third was realistic. But clearly when you look at the games that they've played over the last number of weeks, third was a pipe dream.
I understand why the coaching staff would, and the players would, of course. You're going to expect the best from yourself and you want to overachieve if anything, but we weren't too excited about it going into it ourselves, looking ahead from the outside. But I don't know. I don't know about you, but I didn't expect it to be this bad.
Yeah, it's an indictment of the IRFU. We've made this point from the very start, and there's always a backlash in the comments from people oh, you got to blame the players for this, but actually you don't. At this point, this rests squarely at the door of the chief executive of the IRFU, Kevin Potts, who's been with the IRFU for a long period of time, and so has responsibility for this. So too does David Nusafora, who's in charge of rugby. And the fact that they're pointing to new appointments over the last 12 months to try and rectify this, they've both been in situ for a long period of time in the IRFU, and except that Kevin Potts is newly appointed to the chief executive role, but he has been within the organisation for a long time. So where's their track record that shows us that they're actually going to be able to fix this? Where's the evidence that their concerns about the women's game are showing results? They'll have to come out and speak publicly and show leadership on this, because you take this with the letter that was published, you take this with all of the stuff over the last couple of years, and it's been clear that there have been warnings from within and without the women's game that all was not well. And what happens is that you end up with these results. They've put all their eggs in the basket of qualifying for the Olympics for the sevens team, and they're still not qualified. If they were already qualified, maybe the sevens players would have played for the 15s and the team would have been much better and we could have had a better result. But that hasn't happened. And so there's a possibility we don't end up at the Olympics and we don't end up with a 15s team, and you've tried to serve all the Masters and ended up falling in the middle of it and going, oh my God, what is this ruin that we have at the moment? Like, if you're a young, talented athlete and you're looking at the various sports that you can play, why would you pick rugby at the moment?
Totally. And also, like, we've had 5 games showcased on national stage on TV. You can watch these easily, and if that's the only promotion you're getting, the support has been phenomenal, and you can hear it in each match. You can even hear it over the weekend when Ireland scored their try. Like, there is support at these games, like, and there's so much goodwill towards them, but like, the players don't want to hear that. Like, you know, they want to go way beyond it. And if you're very much a casual observer and you're on the fence about whether you want to play rugby, as a girl watching that, like, you're just watching defeat after defeat, and, you know, great work ethic and endeavour to improve. But like, that's the showcase event. 5 games, no wins, all losses. When are we going to see them next? You know, it's very tough. Like,
Every time we
fair play to Greg McWilliams if he's stepping down today, and because that will remove one of the fig leaves that they had. It was like, oh, here's somebody that we've highly rated and we've put him in charge, and he's going to come out week on week and tell us, you know, actually things are changing. That'll stop now, and they're going to have to find somebody else to do that job. So what else is in the Reds for us this morning?
Yeah, we'll move on to Nottingham Forest and Leeds. I know there are plenty of fans in Ireland of both of those clubs steeped in history, but is there time in the Premier League history? Because both of them had very poor weekends, and deservedly, I think, in the red. Will they be in the red at the end of the season? We'll find out over the next few weeks. But Forest started with a 2-1 defeat at Brentford.
That's cruel.
On Saturday.
Cruel.
It's very cruel for Forest, but you look at the Southampton game they have at home next, and you're like, well, 3 points maybe. Chelsea after that as well, 3 points. No offence to Chelsea. Late winner as well in that game for Brentford from Josh De Silva. Steve Cooper had his qualms and concerns and issues in terms of VAR for that goal, and was there a player offside who was in the goalkeeper's eye line? He wasn't complaining too badly about it, but they had 4 points from their previous 2 games, and that would have been acceptable for Forest given how badly they've been doing. So if you look at them, they're in the relegation zone. They're on 30 points. So that then we're basically saying are gone. So 24 points on the bottom. Everton on 29 points. That's after their 2-2 draw with Leicester last night. And Forest on goal difference, just in the relegation spots ahead of Leeds and Leicester. It's heating up.
You look at Forest, like, Shane, 81 minutes on the clock there on Saturday, away to Brentford, 1-0 up, having just beaten Brighton midweek. Great result. Everything's flying. Everything's coming up Millhouse for Forest.
They would have been safe.
Ivan Toney's equaliser, and the Josh De Silva goal in the 94th minute, Shane, like, it squeezes underneath Keylor Navas. We actually have an image of that as well, of Navas. Like, he's just so forlorn and devastated. There he is. For people who can't see, he's just watching the ball in the net. And that could be the everlasting image of this season for Nottingham Forest, that they could go down. I personally would love to see Forest stay up. Like, I think they're good crack. I like their crest. I like their jersey.
Good enough
I like their
reason,
ground. I like a lot of their players, and I think Steve Cooper's a great manager at that level. So I hope they do stay up, but that was heartbreaking. And as soon as that result went in, Shane, I was thinking they got to be in the red for the performance rankings, just because it's been a disaster in the sense that 2 days later, no matter what happened last night between Leicester and Everton, they were going to wake up Tuesday morning in the relegation zone, and here they are. But like, we've said it several times now the last few days, this is an ever so exciting relegation battle, isn't it? Without Southampton, but all the way up to probably 15th West Ham. Very, very engaging.
Potentially. It's going to go down to the last game of the season regardless, you'd imagine, with 4 games left now for all of them, and the points the way they are, and the score difference the way it is. Steve Cooper was making the point, this is what's crucial here. A goal or a decision is going to hinge and decide who goes up and down. He says after the match about that winning goal for Brentford, we really need to know how they've made the call and the image they have made it from. I hope at this stage of the game and the season that they didn't make a call based on an assumption, but the guys are fuming over it, the guys being the players. The subs and the staff could see it fairly live, and we thought it was going to be the opposite decision. So little moments like that, you don't want officials' decisions and VAR calls and images that they use to decide who goes.
Well, they obviously will. That's the lesson of the season, that they obviously will end up costing somebody a place in the Premier League. Forest play Southampton next. If Southampton were to win that, suddenly then it would still all be to play for at the last day of the season. Southampton's fixtures aren't a complete disaster if they were to suddenly find a run from somewhere. It's Forest, Fulham, Brighton, and then on the last day of the season, Liverpool, who may or may not have something to play for.
Leeds United, meanwhile, I mean, they're screwed.
Grazia. They're all heavy.
They're screwed. 4-1
Sacked
defeat.
in the morning, it feels like.
2.5 months in.
So looking for a third manager of the season. They've lost 4 of their last 5 games. A 4-1 defeat at Bournemouth, followed that reasonable draw against Leicester that I know Leeds were disappointed with. But the talk is Michael Skubala as interim head coach, the guy that we've seen before already this season. There's talk of Lee Bowyer, Alan Pardew. Big Sam, of course, has been mentioned, as has been mentioned with every single managerial exodus that there has been. Jefferson Lerma scored a couple of great goals for Bournemouth in that match
lovely
as well. Both in the first half. 2 lovely finishes, yeah.
How many matches did Skubala manage? Because this would be their 4th manager then. If he did one, did he do 2 games?
He did Old Trafford for sure.
He did.
He did one other as well. Maybe 1 or 2 or 3. Cameron Hill, I'm sure, a resident Leeds United supporter, would tell us here.
Yeah, it was after Marsh left and Gracia came in. I don't know how many matches exactly it was, but I mean, Patrick Bamford pulls a goal back for Leeds with a header, lovely cross as well.
And Nanto had a chance afterwards. They could have got something from this game, as bizarre as that sounds, at 4-1.
Yeah. So look at Leeds' fixtures. Trip to Manchester City, then they welcome Newcastle to Elland Road, then they've West Ham away and a home game with Spurs on the final day. Leeds are screwed, lads.
Well, they could get 6 points from that. Spurs and they're not going to get anything from Newcastle. They're not going to get anything from City. Spurs and who was the last one?
West Ham away and Tottenham on the final day.
Not stranger things have happened.
Maybe, but then those next
6 points be enough? I mean, probably no. 36 points might not be enough.
No.
It probably will, actually, because everybody's losing games. Somebody from the Athletic had a stat about 4 of the teams, their last 8 games, the only win was 1 match against each other.
Yeah, it's class. I love that. Speaking of stats, the 23 goals that Leeds conceded throughout April was the most ever in 1 month for a Premier League team.
Right.
Yeah, that'll be the Grazia legacy, unfortunately. I like Grazia. Likeable figure. Wanted it to go well for him.
Bad manager, though.
I don't know. Got Watford to an FA Cup final. Not sure.
Where they lost, was it 6-0?
Yeah, well, just got to the final.
Yeah.
Also, just a word on Ivan Toney, 20 Premier League goals this season. Only Harry Kane and Erling Haaland have scored more. I know he's a bit of a, he's a penalty whiz, but like Andy Johnson was in the noughties. But I think he's far more than that. Like, got a good free kick at the weekend. It should have been saved by Navas, but it was a free from a good bit of distance anyway.
Some other football we need to talk about. Seamus Coleman, a horrific injury.
Horrible.
Yeah.
It's a knee injury. We haven't had a confirmation, but afterwards Sean Dyche said it did look serious.
Yeah.
And if you haven't seen it, he's been geeing up the crowd from the stretcher.
Isn't
The most Seamus Coleman thing of all time.
incredible, yeah. It's a squeamish looking injury, could be the second major horrific injury of his career. You just feel so sorry for him, and naturally, from the Irish perspective, you're thinking of next month's match against Greece, and on that too, Chiedoze Bene went off injured with a hamstring injury against Rotherham as they stayed up in the Championship. His contract is up in the summer as well, so that could be his last game for the club. Be interesting to see where he ends up. But I know, the Coleman injury, it's such a setback, and also for Everton as well. They were fortunate enough; they should have gone 3-1 down in this game. James Maddison had a penalty to put Leicester 3-1 ahead. And I don't know if you saw the picture, the close-up battle of Jordan Pickford's close-up picture of Jordan Pickford's water bottle. There was a clear stat: 60% of Maddison's penalties went down the middle, and Pickford stays still. There's nothing that looks worse from the misser's perspective when the keeper doesn't move and it goes right down the middle and he just palms it away.
It's a terrible penalty.
Yeah, it was awful. I really thought Vardy was going to take it, because that's 2 goals in 2 games for Vardy after going 19 without.
100% of Tielemans go one way. Can't tell if it's right or left from the
Tielemans
bottle.
picked up the ball initially, looked like he was going to take it, and Maddison took it off him.
But if you're a strike, so if you're a penalty taker, why not do research like the keeper does the research? Research yourself and go, where would I go if I was the keeper? And then just go the other way, or change it up in an irregular pattern.
You're like one of the early MMA fans. Who are like, educate yourself.
Well, Kasper Schmeichel was on TV last night after the match, and he was been asked about his process, and he said, "I'm not going to tell you until I retire, but I have a very different process." So he left us all wanting to know more. But every goalkeeper researches differently for these penalties. But yeah, if you have a player like Maddison who just puts it down the middle 60% of the time, I mean,
well, that's only 2/3 of the time. 1/3 of the time he does other stuff, and
it's all stats, isn't it? You got to stand still then if it's 60%.
Well,
as a keeper,
the thing is, Pickford does go right and then come back, almost fainting them out.
There was an amazing moment in this game last night where Dominic Calvert-Lewin had a tap in for his second of the game, and I think it hit his heel, or he didn't get, or he just timed his momentum wrong,
and
bad miss. Got the weak side of his foot, and then up the other end, Jamie Vardy hits the bar. look, by the order of chances and the penalty, Leicester probably should have won this game. So Everton can consider themselves fortunate to get something from it. And at the same time, they wake up this morning in 19th place after 34 games. Hard to imagine.
All right, so we're still in the red. Do you want to do very quick mention?
Oh no, I was just the clap thing. I mean, I thought, Spurs were a contender obviously for Amber, but like the sprinting up to the fourth official after Liverpool's goal, and then the hamstring injury, and I knew watching it, I knew that they were going to be like, oh, it's hilarious, what a character, he pulled his hamstring, that's brilliant. And I knew that was going to be the question to him as well afterwards. And in fairness to Patrick Davis and his guy, he probed them a little bit about what was said there, what was said between you and the ref. And of course he had a go at Paul Tierney too, which is unfair. But the thing with Klopp, like he's a bit of a clown, like
he's a dose, that's the word.
Clown, like I thought, this incredibly charismatic guy, brilliant manager. I enjoyed him a lot initially, but this sprinting up to the fourth official, like he's a bully. He's a bully.
You're like, what was he trying to get out of that? Was he just like?
Well, and then also said afterwards, well, I didn't actually say anything to him, so I think that's fine. I sprinted up to him and he's like, look, it's not cool that I did that, but I didn't say anything. And then I got the hamstring injury. I think he was basically describing karma without saying it. So he has some level of self-awareness, which actually probably makes it worse because he's going to do this again. And he just picks on people of a lesser standing, which is the definition of bullying.
Yeah, I wonder, are Liverpool fans as sick of those antics as, say, United fans are?
I don't think so, Shane. I mean, you probably get the odd Liverpool fan who doesn't like seeing it, but like, what really annoyed me was like, I was reading the comments online, it was like, oh, what a legend, what a character, because of the hamstring injury, and he limps away from it, and he does the chest pump with all his players, and he has this like toxic side to him. But Ireland, just the sprinting up to the fourth official, like, why does the fourth official get it so much in the year? Like, what can they do?
Do you know when people pick their 3 sports people or 5 sports people dead or alive they'd love to have dinner with? He makes my list of people I'd absolutely not want to have dinner with.
I'd say he's brilliant. I'd say you get loads of insight from him. I'd say in a relaxed environment, he's brilliant company. Like, there's so much to him. He's an amazing manager. Like, the way he can consistently, year after year, motivate the same set of players or a new set of players. He's won everything you can at Liverpool. He's been an absolute legend at the club. But I hate this side of him.
Yeah,
hate it, and he'll do it again.
Was he potentially taking away some of the negativity from the team, because they won the game 4-3, having been 3-0 up against the flakiest Spurs side in the history of flaky Spurs sides? Was there analysis done? I didn't see the aftermath of the game.
Yeah.
Was there analysis done of their own collapse? Another collapse from Liverpool in a game?
I think Spurs are so bad that the focus was entirely shifted to them.
Yeah, I think so. I think if you're asking what the analysis was like, I think it was that. Yeah,
then they came back. Do you know what I mean? So and now suddenly it's Klopp's hamstring as opposed to what happened to your team at 3-0 that they couldn't control the game.
That's really annoying thing about modern football too. We're all guilty of it. Is like incidents are analysed more than the football itself. So the Skip and Jota incident was probably the most talked about after Klopp went over to the fourth official. So then third or fourth in the running order is Liverpool throwing away a 3-0 lead, and they had never done that at Anfield before, where they went 3-0 up and drew a game. So Jota of course changed that at the end. So it was all about the mistakes and Lucas Moura's mistake at the end, and then Ryan Mason afterwards saying, oh, we were by far the better team, and then Klopp saying, well, like, if Spurs don't just counter all the time and concentrate on actually proactively creating chances, they'd be a bit better.
Alright, can we just mention before we move on as well, a statement that came in from the Leeds players. I don't know if you saw this last night, lads, the statement about the subsequent post on social media, the walking past the young kid in his Leeds jersey looking for autographs in the hotel. There seems to be a trend that's cropping up quite significantly and quite a lot recently, probably because Leeds lost as well, in the fashion in which they did, that this has made a story. But the whole apology thing in football is really reaching other levels. But I mean, it's not hard to stop for a few kids and sign a few autographs, is it?
No.
Be human.
The NBA playoffs are on at the moment, and it's going to be LeBron versus Steph. It's a 7-game series after Steph went off for 50 points against Sacramento on the road, and we'll keep an eye on that and we'll start talking about it over the next week or two. But if you're only vaguely interested in the NBA, the time to tune in is now, and LeBron versus Steph might not happen again. I assume LeBron is not injured. I don't think he is. So anyway, that's it.
We'll move on to Amber, and I think we're going to Arsenal. The Arsenal women's team had a Champions League semi-final last night, a second leg against Wolfsburg, an opportunity to reach a European decider, and Jesus, they were oh so close. Extra time it went to 2-2 after normal time. Jonas Eidevall speaking after the game about the immense pride, because it was a very, very late winner for Wolfsburg. You're thinking this is heading to penalties, but a very late winner for Paulina Bremer to crush Arsenal 5-4 in aggregate. Crushed them as in their hearts and their resolve and their ambitions of winning in Europe this year because they were so close. And they showed some serious bottle to come back from 2-0 down in the away leg last week to get back to 2-2 and bring something back to London. A record crowd for a domestic women's game in England as well, over 60,000 where the Emirates sold out for that match last night as well. Katie McCabe hits the crossbar very late on, and you're thinking this is the moment. But if you look at the injury list, Captain Kim Little, you've Leah Williamson and Caitlin Ford in recent weeks, and then of course the long-term ACLs, Beth Mead and Vivian Miedema. So I think that's what Jonas Eidevall was getting at when he spoke about the immense pride, because the bench is thin. The strength and depth is very thin with all these injuries that have struck Arsenal. So I guess they had it all to do last night for that second leg, but unfortunately they just couldn't get the job done.
Yeah, they lie in 4th place as well in WSL, but I would have been brilliant to start with Katie McCabe's winner winning today. I was so close, captain, and smashes the woodwork, but like very unfortunate. And Wolfsburg have been getting the better of them in the Champions League too. Like you're looking at what's this? It was back in 2007, I think, wasn't it? Arsenal's last triumph there. So they've gone a long time without, and so close so far. That's why they're in the amber. But
the problem is now they have a little bit of a battle in the WSL to actually qualify for Europe for next season. So they're sitting in 4th at the moment as I look at it, 2 points behind Chelsea, and they've played one game more. And it's only, of course, as I say, the top 3 that compete in Europe. So, I mean, Arsenal have a job, especially with those injuries, to actually even qualify for Europe next year. So the last number of games in the season.
You mentioned the full house, obviously.
Yeah, of course that's why it's an amber, because I mean there are positives to take from this. It was really good to see. Fervent atmosphere it appeared, and of course majority Arsenal fans in the Emirates last night, and for a really unbelievable European game under the lights as well. That's just what you want to see. So yeah, probably amber, because considering the injuries, not the worst performance or result in the world, but yeah, they'll be absolutely gutted, and Katie McCabe was clearly gutted afterwards.
Alright, in the green?
Yeah, move on to the green, and Clare and Louth, I think deservedly both, for their GA exploits in the respective codes over the weekend. Clare themselves, I've seen the narrative passed across the weekend, lads, that Clare have saved the hurling summer with this result. Possibly, I'm not going to go that far this morning, but Clare 1 goal and 24 points, Limerick 220. We were kind of trying to decipher if these stats before us were correct before the show, but first time Clare have beaten Limerick in a championship game in a Limerick City venue since 1901.
There was incredulity in the studio.
I still don't believe it.
I know, it sounds a bit wrong, doesn't it?
Our sources are correct, Shane, though.
Yeah, they appear to be correct. And look, 30,500 people at that match in Limerick. Kiss of life to the summer, I think Malachy Clerkin described it as. And then you see the injuries to Sean Finn and Cian Lynch for Limerick as well, which might be a slight concern for John Kiley, no doubt.
Why wasn't it on TV?
Lads.
Sure, it was on TV. It was on GA Go.
Yeah, it wasn't on national TV for the most people to see it. Like, oh my God, and I was listening to it on the radio, and there was Palms there as well. It was just so frustrating. And I know I can't please everyone. I totally get that. And you're sharing a lot of stuff on one channel or 2 channels, but like there's another channel they could put it on too. And like the doubleheader was great on Sunday, but that game, like, you could have anticipated that was going to be a cracker because it was so close last year as well. Mm-hmm. You know, that's where the eyes were this weekend, and it didn't it didn't fail to deliver. Like, it was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. And like Limerick could have gone ahead. Flanagan, I think, could have scored a goal after about 15 seconds.
Yeah.
Like, it had everything from start to finish and only a point in it at the end.
And Flanagan's goal could have been a square ball, but then again, you look at it in slow motion and you still can't decipher whether or not it's a square ball. So maybe leave the umpires off on that one.
I don't know. It felt like a square ball at the time. And anyway, I understand why it wasn't given. But we'll talk more about this a little bit later on. If you just listen to this section, go and search for Sarah Donovan in our podcast feed, and we'll get into this in more details. Louth, obviously, we could have done plenty more on them as well. We will do more. I suspect they're surging up the power rankings. They were pretty lucky. They were obviously dominant, but also lucky in that kind of weird way that only happens when you can see goals. And
they led by 4 with 62 minutes gone.
Yeah,
so yeah, they could have thrown it away.
And Samuel Roy came to life in injury in extra time.
Yeah, 20 minutes, first 20 minutes, yeah.
Sensational from him, and you know, they'll feel pretty good about life against the Dubs in the final. Got to move on. Leinster and Rog. We're going to talk Leinster in just a moment. Rog in the green.
100%. I'm getting a lot of hate, by the way, in the comments. Shane should be ashamed he didn't force Luca Brissell into the green slot. I'm surprised given how much Shane has been plugging the snooker of late. Luca Brissell isn't in the performance rankings. Fergal O'Brien is coming in the studio, so I've managed to squeeze that one. Michael says Shane is definitely on my list of not to have dinner with. Bad enough listening to him at breakfast. Michael, I wouldn't have breakfast with you either, but thanks for that this morning.
You do every morning though, Shane.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thanks guys. Thanks Michael for that comment. Yeah, Leinster and Rog. I mean, we've got the fairy tale The final that we wanted.
I don't know. I would have been much
No?
happier if we weren't facing Raj again, to be honest, as a Leinster fan. It would have been much easier.
But I suppose, but I mean, from an excitement and a narrative point of view,
Yes,
I mean,
I
we
accept,
want
yes,
Raj.
yes. And obviously, I mean, Raj, we love you and all.
But Leinster were dominant, very impressive, similarly to La Rochelle, but 41 points to 22, and it was comfortable.
It wasn't comfortable. My Whoop measures my stress, and it was like 72 minutes of stress. Eventually, in the second half, like, okay, I can finally. Anyway.
Yeah.
We were about to talk about this in much more detail, so James Tracy's outside, we're going to get into him. That is this week's Gillette Labs Performance Rankings. Up next, Keith Tracy on Liverpool Spurs, and then James Tracy in the studio.
OTB AM's Performance Rankings with Gillette.